What did ancient Romans use for toilet paper? Paper of any kind is actually a fairly recent invention, and when I say recent, I mean it's only about 1,000 years old. But humans have been around for a lot longer than 1,000 years, and we have needed to clean ourselves for a lot longer than 1,000 years. And so different cultures across history have developed different ways of dealing with this very fundamental problem. One of those ways is used in India and some parts of the world around that area. They will use a pitcher of water and the hand. In some cultures, it's very significant what hand you greet someone with because one of them is for a dedicated purpose and the other one is for everything else. I'm not sure which one is which, but I understand that in one area of the Middle East, you use one hand for wiping and the other one for eating. And in India, I believe, you use the other one. So that's a thing that's important to get right. In other places of the world, people have used straw, corn cobs, bits of moss, and, bizarrely, pottery shards. There is some evidence that people in Greece and in Rome actually used broken pieces of pottery as toilet paper. Now, the evidence for this is kind of interesting. There is a particular very common item that is often found in Roman archaeological digs called pessoi. They are these little round pieces of pottery that have been kind of roughly shaped to look like this. It's usually part of an old broken pot. It's kind of been rounded and smoothed, and then for the longest time, archaeologists weren't sure what they are. The smaller ones they assume are gaming pieces. I mean, a convenient way to make essentially checkers for an ancient game called pessoi, which means pebbles. There's also possibly, ludus latrunculi pieces or other gaming pieces, and so they were filed away in the cabinets as gaming pieces. In addition to that, there's also a saying in Greece that 3 stones are enough to wipe. Kind of a bizarre saying. It basically means that you should be frugal with your resources. Okay, so that's a saying, but did people ever actually do that? Actually, we have some very, very detailed images of Greek daily life on pots. And one of these pots shows a man wiping himself with, you guessed it, a rock. So there's some evidence that people in ancient Greece and Rome wiped themselves with round bits of polished ceramic. So the question is, does it work? Can you wipe yourselves with ceramic? And the answer is yes. You might wonder how I know that. So the question is, can you actually wipe yourself with a rock? And is it absolutely horrible? And that's not the kind of question that I could leave in the theoretical. I kind of want to know. I mean, for one thing, it'd be really interesting to get into the head of ancient people. And for another thing, if that's a thing that worked then, it's also a thing that could work, I don't know, after the toilet paper factories burn down and we have a zombie apocalypse. So I tried it. And the methodology I used was pretty simple. I bought some of these small planter bottoms. I took some fine grit sandpaper and made sure there were no burrs because that would not be fun. And then I set them down next to the toilet and tried using one just before my shower so that if I needed to, I could have an emergency bidet. The answer is it works way better than you would expect. Kind of think like a squeegee. You scrape away the stuff and then you soak it in a bucket with a little bit of bleach to clean them off, and it's not that bad. If you think of buying really cheap toilet paper, it's about equivalent. And the saying actually gets it right. 3 rocks really are just about enough to wipe. So that's interesting. Broken pieces of pottery. Useful for more than just nothing. What I like about this solution, aside from the fact that it's something that could be useful in the event of the zombie apocalypse, and for the fact that it gets me into the head of people who lived more than 2,000 years ago, is that it's a really interesting use of recycled materials. I mean, there was so much pottery being shipped into Rome that they actually built a mountain out of the broken shards. Pottery is an incredibly useful thing. You can use it to make just about all kinds of vessels for carrying things. It's heat resistant, it's useful. We've even used it to make the tiles for the space shuttle. Now, the trouble is it's also very brittle, which means it breaks. And so then you have pottery shards lying all over the place. Now, you could do what the Romans did and just make a mountain out of them in the middle of the city, or you could use them for some other purpose. Now, one of the purposes that they were used very commonly for in the ancient world is for writing. you would scratch notes into little broken pieces of pottery. These notes are called ostraka, and they're really, really interesting when you find them in archaeological digs. There have been scriptures found from them from Coptic Egypt. There have been all kinds of notes and bits from here and there all over the ancient world. The word ostraka originally comes from Greece, and in Greece they had a tradition that once a year you had an opportunity to ostracize somebody out of Athens, and that meant banishing someone who was hated in the community and just getting rid of them. And so what they would do is they'd hold a vote and then decide whether they were going to have an ostracism, and then a little bit later they would write down names on little ceramic discs, and then whoever got the most votes on his name would get kicked out of the city for 10 years. Now, what's really interesting to me about that practice is you're writing the name of somebody you really hate, somebody you think should be forced out of the city on pain of death if they try to come back. And you're writing it on little ceramic discs. And there's some evidence that people were wiping themselves with little ceramic discs. And the pieces of the puzzle start to fall together, which really makes you wonder. I mean, is that one of the things? I mean, we found one of these tiles with Socrates' name on it, so, you know, makes you wonder if people weren't wiping their nether regions with the name of a hated enemy. So, wiping yourself with a smooth piece of pottery, does it work? Yes, I can say with confidence that it does. Is there evidence that people in the ancient world did that? Yes, there is at least some evidence. I'll leave links to some of the research down here below, or maybe to an article on the Good and Basic Trove. We have a website where we sometimes give additional notes to our material, showing some of the sources that we were using. And also, if you're interested, there's an opportunity to donate so that we can continue to do the good work that we do on this channel. Testing things for you guys so that you don't necessarily have to. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like and subscribe button below, and I don't know, if you're stocking up for the apocalypse, maybe consider hitting the Amazon link below for buying some small planter bottoms. I highly recommend sanding all the burrs off first.